Now I want to introduce the company, Fox News contributor Jedediah Bila, Lifeline CEO Scott Page, of course, and Judge Andrew Napolitano's here. And as always, Nicole Petalides on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. All right, guys, you heard the interview. What's your thoughts?
My immediate thought is I think the NRA is way off. No one's trying to take away the Second Amendment. No one's trying to take away guns. They're trying to control something that's out of control. No one has a reason to have high-capacity magazines or assault weapons. AR-15s, I went online with my iPad last night and was ready to buy one. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's already controls in place as to what type of weapons we can have. Moving that bar just another step to stop the control that might save some lives and make a difference in this country, we have to change. It's out of control, and I think the NRA is doing nothing but promoting fear and confusion.
Look, legislatively, Obama's going to have a very hard time pushing these things through, limiting high-capacity magazines, reinstating an assault ban rifle. He's going to have a hard time with Democrats in the Senate. There are a lot of Democrats in very red states that are up for re-election next year and are not going to want to support these policies. You made the key point, though. The NRA, in my opinion, is often very right on policy, but their delivery is off. They are not going to appeal to the general public using an ad that utilizes the president in the way they did. So I think they need to reassess their strategy. And if you are here to convince the public that you are in the right, you need to approach it a little bit differently.
But does the president's drone campaign go against this message? Well, all rise. The judge is here. Judge Andrew Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst and author of many books, the most recent, Theodore and Woodrow. Listen, the president's...
Which Varney has to remind everybody that he's on page 276.
I know. You know what? I might as well admit it, too. I'm a little jealous I wasn't on 278, but we'll talk about that later. Listen, the president's drone campaign has killed so many innocent people,
all right,
including kids.
I'm looking at my BlackBerry because I want to give these numbers precisely. The numbers are from Stanford Law School and New York University Law School, hardly hotbeds of defense of the Second Amendment, and arguably intellectually honest researchers. The drone kills from June 2004 to September 2012. So this includes George W. Bush's drones as well as Barack Obama's. In Pakistan alone, killed between 2,500 and 3,300 people. Between 475 and 884 were civilians, and 176 were children. These are obviously innocent children. We know that 2 of these children were Americans. We also know the president never asked Congress to declare war on the government or the state in the area where these drones have gone. And we know that his new Secretary of Defense is in favor of fewer troops on the ground, and his new head of the CIA likes this drone program. So we have a president who has not hesitated to kill foreign innocent children or American innocent children when they are in a foreign country. He loses great credibility when he stands with innocent American children and says, I'm going to keep you safe.
What do you think?
I don't think the president's intention were to kill children. I think that the president...
Well, but Scott, hold on one second. We know that's not his intention, but if you go about this haphazardly, if you just drop bombs indiscriminately out the sky, that's what happens, isn't it? You hear that some guy's at a cafe in a crowded city, guess what? So are other people around that person.
Unfortunately, with any war, there's going to be collateral damage, and in this case, it's terrible that innocent people and children are killed.
But this is not, if I may, this is not a war. Pakistan is an ally. We haven't declared war on Pakistan. We have attempted surgically to remove people from a jurisdiction where we are friendly with the government. And in doing so, without authorization from the Congress, without a declaration of war, and in violation of the Constitution, he has killed Americans.
And here's the thing, Jedediah. I'm a fan of drones, to be quite frank with you, but the president seems so hypocritical trotting out these children. By the way, I hate that he even used their, I don't like that he used them in the first place, and I don't like that he put their names out there to the public. Be that as it may, doesn't it look somewhat hypocritical to talk about this? Our number one goal as humans, as adults, is to protect the children.
Of course it looks hypocritical. And my big question is, when it comes to these drones, where is the left? Why is the left not hypercritical of the president? If this was a Republican in the White House, the left would be absolutely outraged. I hear silence.
If I may, that is a great question. I remember asking Congressman Charlie Rangel about this, a classic liberal Democrat who was furious that the president bombed Libya instead of asking the Congress for authorization to do so. He could have gotten a declaration of war. And he said to me, you know what? He's our guy. He does so many things that we like. These are a couple of gimmies. Gimmies. This is destroying the Constitution, and this is destroying innocent human life because he happens to be an acceptable liberal in other areas. You're going to zip your lip. Shame on them.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely, I
you know, Charlie Rangel must be on the way out.
You can't dislike Charlie. How can you dislike Charlie?
And you can't dislike the judge. Judge, thanks a lot. We
Pleasure.
appreciate it. Now, you would think the state's seeing the biggest exodus. Now, according to the latest migration study from United Vans Lines, New Jersey is the #1 state people are leaving, hopefully for greener pastures. Not California. We always talk about that in the company. Joining us now is Republican leader of the New Jersey Assembly, John Bramnick. John, listen, the Vans are leaving. I mean, there's an exodus out of New Jersey. What's going on?
Well, for 10 years before Governor Christie took over, the Democrats ran our state. They raised taxes 115 times. They raised the corporate tax. They raised cigarette tax. They raised everything. Property taxes went up 7%.
And that would explain the 10-year exodus that we've seen from the Census Bureau and others, but they're still leaving.
Well, they're leaving because people don't decide to leave next month. There was a process where people said, we want to leave, they schedule leave, they sell their house, and they go. Chris Christie's turned that around. We have the slowest escalation of property taxes in 20 years now. So you're going to see a reversal when people realize New Jersey's changing.
How do you think New Jersey is going to be able to compete with states, though, that are now talking about eliminating the state income tax? That's very sort of encouraging to people like me. I want to sort of run over there. If I could move over there today, I would. Or Louisiana, Bobby Jindal out there talking about this. How are states like New Jersey and New York going to compete with that?
Well, that's what we're doing. The governor actually proposed an income tax reduction. The Democrats haven't passed it. The Northeast, there's a lot of options for jobs. Opportunities are great, but people don't want to pay the high taxes. That's why this governor's been so effective with the Republicans in the legislature changing the theme in our state. And I think we're going to make that move.
I think we're also seeing, or you can confirm this, you're also seeing more people moving into New Jersey with some sprawling, where you're making new millionaires versus old ones moving in. And there has to be a lot of buzz and excitement with you getting the Super Bowl in 2014.
Well, we like the Super Bowl coming. We also have created private sector jobs, 75,000 new private sector jobs since its governor's taken office. We've reduced government jobs, and that's a trend. Governors set an example for the nation, no question about it, and we're on the move. I can guarantee you that.
All right, well, but here's the problem, though, and Jedediah brought it up. Competition against these other states. I mean, you talked just now about slowing, taxes and things like that, not reversing them, not taking them off the table. I live in New Jersey. It is, by the time, Uncle Sam gets me, New York, it's just, and then, Jersey takes their cut. It's hardly, it's devastating. Can the state survive? Or has it gone past the point of inflection? In other words, can it survive? Can it actually change its tax policies, the ones that you talked about over those 10 years? Because states become addicted to that kind of money coming in.
Well, we've already done that with a 2% property tax cap, as well as this slowing of property taxes. But you say reversal. First, you have to stop the bleeding, which the governor, and actually on a bipartisan basis, we've done that.
All right, so we put a tourniquet on, but how do we heal it real quick?
Well, we've put caps on arbitration, meaning that you can't have public employees getting 7% raises. We've done that, and also it's a special place to live. You may want to live in other parts of the nation. We have a lot of opportunities in New Jersey, a lot of creative places to go right in Jersey.
All right, John Bramnick, thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
California versus Texas, big government or individual freedoms. It's a topic of John Stousel's show tonight. Listen to this.
The showdown between two states, Texas versus California. Which is a better place to live?
John Stousel's here. John, a big difference between California and Texas in a lot of areas, but the topic of the show has been guns, so let's focus on that.
I don't know how many people moved out of California and went to Texas because it's easier to buy a gun.
But is it easier?
Yes, much. It's also, you don't have to have a motorcycle helmet, and you can talk on your phone while you're driving.
So can I strap on a rifle and get on a Harley and just head on down the road?
No rules in Texas, just the federal rules, so you have to have the background check. But in California, a 10-day waiting period. You can only buy one gun per month. They've passed 45 gun control laws in the past 23 years, and yet murder per capita about the same as Texas. A little worse, actually. So
really?
There's no evidence that these laws work. But you're freer, and there's less regulation in Texas.
Is that the underlying theme of your show tonight, that Texas is freer?
Yeah, the biggest stuff is no income tax. There's just more job creation. In one way, Texas is worse. They're more likely to confiscate your property, and we'll go into that. But it's nice that we've got 50 states. They're laboratories of democracy, and if you don't like your state, you can move. If you're in Europe, you got to leave your country as depart.
But it is pretty obvious, though, that people are moving. They don't like California. They don't like what California has become, and Texas happens to be a bright, shining light for them.
For year after year until 1990, almost 3 times as many people as average moved into California. It was the place to go. It stopped in 1990. Last decade, they lost 2 million people. Texas gained 500,000.
Texas now, you know, I remember in the Democratic convention they said it would be a blue state at some point. But with all these people coming in, from the political angle, and I'm not sure how much you're going to get into this, isn't it an attractive place for political conservatives who think perhaps this is a state that probably best mirrors the Constitution still?
Yes, I think Alaska also.
Alaska, just a little colder in Alaska, though.
I hear people come up to me on the street and say, "I hope you die soon." And in Texas, they love me.
They roll out the red carpet.
And I'm a libertarian, not even a conservative. So there's a big difference. But in Austin, it's as liberal as New York City.
Yeah, well, Austin is, you know, a lot of universities and things like that. The intellectuals live there. So the freedom.
How can they be wrong about so much and still be called intellectuals? They've always been wrong.
That's a good
They
point.
Embraced communism. Hayek talks
That's
about
called
this.
great branding, isn't it? So back to the whole thing, though, California versus Texas. What's the overarching story? In other words, what's the moral of the story for all of us?
The moral of the story is that what makes people's life better is if you have opportunities. And lack of regulation provides that. In Houston, they don't have zoning, so housing is much cheaper. It's easier to start a business. I mean, it's not perfect. You may get a big, ugly place next to your house, but it's that freedom to try.
Yeah.
You know, Charles, I have a suspicion that a lot of liberals, even though they won't admit it, also leave California and move to Texas for some of those benefits. And politically, that might sway the way the country looks in the next election or 2 elections after. If you have some of those closet liberals going and saying, you know what, I don't want to pay these high taxes. I don't want them telling me what to do, even though I'm going to keep voting these Democrats in. I'm going to move over there, and maybe, you know, a little bit of shifting of mentality over time. I'm not sure how that's going to wind up.
Well, you start chipping away at my paycheck, you chip away at my ideology.
Right.
You know, I think you just can't have a Southern California lifestyle in Texas. And I'm of the opinion that we need regulation and guidance. I mean, let's look at every time there's been a business or an opportunity where you've released regulation, there's more havoc that happens. People need guidelines and need square edges around how they live their life and how to operate and how businesses should run. Texas is one of the most relaxed states when it comes to securities violations.
Well, and
all
that's what the show's all about tonight. That's all about your 401k, your nest egg. Not supposed to touch that. Well, new studies show that more than 1/4 of Americans are dipping into those accounts to pay current bills. On top of that, of course, people are living longer. So, Scott Page, we want your thoughts on this.
You know, it's the good news, bad news for this country. Yes, people are living longer, but the bad news is how we're going to pay for it. You know, I think tapping into your 401k needs to be the last resort effort of all efforts. But there's other options that people never talk about. You know, first is a reverse mortgage, as long as the consumer's aware of that product.
People hate reverse mortgages.
Because they don't understand them, because it's a consumer education problem. The second, which is completely not talked about, and actually the insurance industry hates to discuss it, is what's known as a life settlement. This is where a senior can sell their existing life insurance policy for the cash they need now to help fund their retirement. So I think that people need to start thinking outside of the box and consider these options. But I would definitely caution anyone to use their 401k unless it's a last-ditch effort.
So in other words, use your house, the reverse mortgage, which is it's a little different than a home equity loan, or could you call it that?
Well, a reverse mortgage is a loan. One of the problems that we run into with consumers with reverse mortgage, almost 70% of consumers take all of the money up front, meaning they don't save enough money to pay for the insurance and the taxes. And then the lender ends up foreclosing and taking the home away. Another problem with reverse mortgages is there may be an elderly, a 70-year-old and an 80-year-old. They'll get the reverse mortgage on the 80-year-old because they get a lower rate, and then when that person dies, they foreclose on the home. So again, it's consumer education. It's different than a life settlement, though. A life settlement is when you actually sell an existing or unwanted life insurance policy. You can get the cash and use it for whatever you need it to do. It's a wonderful option that seniors need to consider.
Of course, you are talking your book,
And I'm talking, yes,
Okay.
I own the Lifeline program, the CEO and the founder, but it's a shame the insurance industry is trying to suppress this option from consumers.
It's so scary to me that people feel this kind of desperation. This is the kind of economy we're dealing with right now, that, you know, people are working part-time jobs when they want full-time jobs, if they're lucky to have a job at all. And now their savings, the one thing they
Right.
can rely upon
I
when
know.
they can retire, is now vanishing
It's-
from their fingertips.
It's absolutely
so
amazing.
horrifying.
It really
to me.
is. Guys, the highlight reel is next.